Stephen E. Landsburg. The Unconventional Wisdom of Economics. More is Safer Sex, by Stephen E. Landsburg is a thought-provoking book that takes a unique and innovative approach to discussing sex and sexuality. Instead of relying on moral or religious arguments, Landsburg approaches the topic from an economic perspective, using the principles of comparative advantage and trade-offs to explore a range of issues related to sex. Through a series of engaging and entertaining chapters, Landsburg examines topics such as how to have safer sex, how to have more sex, the economics of marriage, how to find a partner, the economics of homosexuality, the economics of prostitution, and the economics of pornography. Each chapter is filled with insights and practical advice, grounded in economic theory and research. One of the key themes of the book is the idea that more sex can actually lead to safer sex. By applying the principle of comparative advantage to sexual behavior, Landsburg argues that individuals can reduce the risk of sexually transmitted infections by having more sex with fewer partners, rather than less sex with more partners. This provocative idea challenges conventional wisdom and forces readers to rethink their assumptions about sex and risk. Throughout the book, Landsburg also examines the trade-offs that people make when it comes to sex, whether it's between pleasure and risk reduction, or between sexual frequency and other aspects of life such as work and family. By exploring these trade-offs through an economic lens, Landsburg provides readers with a fresh and insightful perspective on sex and sexuality that is both engaging and informative. Overall, More is Safer Sex is a must-read for anyone interested in sex and sexuality. Landsburg's unique approach to the topic is both entertaining and informative, and readers are sure to come away with a new appreciation for the economic forces that shape our sexual behavior and decision-making. More is Safer Sex, by Stephen E. Landsburg is a fascinating book that takes a fresh and innovative approach to discussing sex and sexuality. In this book, Landsburg uses the principles of economics to explore a range of topics related to sex, from how to have safer sex to the economics of prostitution and pornography. Chapter 1. The Principle of Comparative Advantage. Landsburg begins by introducing the principle of comparative advantage, which argues that people are better off specializing in what they do best and trading with others. He then applies this principle to sexual behavior and argues that individuals can reduce their risk of sexually transmitted infections by having more sex with fewer partners, rather than less sex with more partners. Chapter 2. How to have safer sex. This chapter provides practical advice on how to reduce the risk of sexually transmitted infections. Landsburg discusses the effectiveness of various forms of contraception, including condoms and birth control pills. He also examines the trade-offs between risk reduction and pleasure maximization in sexual decision-making. Chapter 3. How to have more sex. Landsburg argues that increasing the quantity of sex can lead to better sexual health outcomes, particularly with respect to STI transmission. He discusses the benefits of monogamy and the risks of promiscuity, and examines the trade-offs between sexual frequency and other aspects of life, such as work and family. Chapter 4. The Economics of Marriage. This chapter examines the economic factors that influence the decision to get married. Landsburg discusses the benefits of specialization, risk-sharing, and transaction costs, and compares marriage to alternative relationship arrangements, such as cohabitation and casual dating. Chapter 5. How to find a partner. This chapter explores the economics of dating and mate selection. Landsburg discusses the role of physical attractiveness, social status, and other factors in mate selection, and examines the trade-offs between short-term and long-term mating strategies. Chapter 6. The Economics of Homosexuality. Landsburg applies economic principles to the decision to engage in same-sex relationships. He discusses the benefits of reduced gender-based transaction costs and the increased bargaining power of women, and examines the trade-offs between social stigma and the benefits of same-sex relationships. Chapter 7. The Economics of Prostitution. This chapter examines the economic factors that influence the decision to engage in prostitution. Landsburg discusses the benefits of higher income and reduced transaction costs, and examines the trade-offs between social stigma and the benefits of prostitution, as well as the potential negative consequences, such as STI transmission and violence. Chapter 8. The Economics of Pornography. The final chapter of the book examines the economic factors that influence the production and consumption of pornography.